multiple device will get you.
We are live. We are live. We are live.
Beautiful. I'll tell you what. All right. So, Sherelle, you know what? Ladies first. I'm gonna let you
Okay.
get started. Get us started, and let's get this ball on the roll.
All right. So, welcome to the Black Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Cherelle Hobson, student athlete resilience coach and athletic program enthusiast, helping athletic coaches increase their matriculation to 90%. Through my speaking and my books, I provided people with tools to be able to find their current place and overcome life challenges. With my doctorate in sports administration, I focus on African American males and the effects of athletics on their educational plans. So many of you know that I'm very passionate and dedicated to empowering and being very productive in the Black community. We got Mr. B here.
Yeah, my name is Brian Freed. Currently working on a PhD. I'm the founder and CEO of Your Legacy Begins Now. It's a social business that I created after I started to see a problem in the child welfare system, actually, where there was a funding issue that didn't allow certain services to be put in place. So I decided to go out and start my own company that started to develop certain streams of revenue to go towards funding some of those services that were needed, specifically for the Black community, for those who are transitioning from in-service care to becoming an adult. And typically, anyone in our community, period, that's making that transition, putting leadership, putting mentorship programs in place, and not having to depend on federal funding to say if or if not those programs will be running because of rediverting certain funding. And my current mission is developing what I'm calling the Black Economic Initiative, to where I'm bringing together entrepreneurs, academics, professionals throughout the Black community, that we're going to be really pushing the necessity of group economics, the importance of it, and the importance of understanding it, and then the importance of practicing it, so that we can really start to bring up our Black community the way that we truly know that it can be. So, Real, who we got with us today?
We have a special guest once again. So we have Dr. Christopher Brown here. Okay, Dr. Christopher Brown. He's been on TED Talk. He's been all over the world. So we're just so excited about him and just his expertise. And Brian, just give us a little insight on Dr. Brown and who he is.
Well, I don't want to spoil too much of his thunder, but Dr. Brown is actually a graduate of North Carolina A&T State University.
Okay.
A medical degree and a master's in public health from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He finished his residency in internal medicine and fellowship of nephrology. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Nephrology at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. I'm going to allow him to elaborate on some of the rest of his expertise, his affiliations, some of the foundations that he's connected with. But we're honored. We're honored to have you with us, Dr. Brown. We really aim to bring individuals from the Black community that are doing things that our youth can look up to, have the potential to doing as well. Because if we look at some of our communities and the environment that our youth are growing up in, they don't have a lot of people like yourself to look at as an example. So our job is placing you in front of them here on social media and through the podcast, so that there's another example of what you could become. And as we have here, as you should see on our screen, the Black podcast stands for Boldly Leveraging Affluent Connections for Knowledge. So we see Dr. Brown as an affluent connection. And when we say affluent, we're not strictly talking about monetary. We're talking about affluent, rich in knowledge, rich in wealth, rich in and experience, rich in so many different ways that can pour into our community and allow us to bring ourselves up to where we desire and deserve to be.
Absolutely. So Dr. Brown, Christopher Brown, is there anything that you would like to, let the guests know about you? Is there anything that you have as far as any new research or anything that you want the guests to know before we kind of get started in the potatoes of the whole show?
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dr. Hobson, for this wonderful opportunity to kind of share knowledge, experience with your guests. So yet again, I guess I'll kind of rehash a little bit about that personal background. So I am Dr. Christopher Brown, originally from North Carolina, currently residing in Columbus, Ohio. Go Buckeyes. Yes. Originally from, like I said, a little small town in North Carolina called Lumberton. Went to undergrad at North Carolina A&T State University, Aggie Pride for everybody that's out there. And then, like I said, went to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where I got both a medical degree as well as a master's in public health. So got both of those degrees there. And then ventured out and came to Columbus, Ohio to go to the Ohio State University, where I completed both a internal medicine specialty and then a nephrology subspecialty. And that nephrology is a specialty in kidney disease and hypertension. After that, I was able to go out and, I was actually an assistant professor for a while at OSU, and then went out into private practice. And so there I did what we call hospital medicine for a while. I did some contracting for a while. Was able to become a medical director of a community mental health center for a little bit of time. Eventually wound up going back into my specialty, which is kidney disease, at a smaller area, and I've been there for about it'll be 4 years in November, where I kind of focus on the kidney disease. For the last year, I actually was able to become the health commissioner and medical director of Ross County Health District. And so that's basically their health department down there. And of course, right now we're in the middle of the pandemic. So this went from becoming a nice, small job to a huge endeavor. So it has been an interesting time. So that's kind of my overall, my background in a nutshell. I am a single father, so I have two daughters. So when you talked about affluence not necessarily being money, I don't have any money anymore. I have daughters, so the money's
I was going to ask to borrow some. I mean, you went out to all these schools.
They got all the money.
Okay.
So I got that, and in addition to that, I'm also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. And so looking forward to this and to answer some of these questions, and hopefully provide a nugget or two of information and help somebody on their way.
Well, I guess I need to give a shout out to all the Deltas since you're out there. That's where the bond is. Okay, so I see it. It's all coming together now. Well, thank you, Dr. Brown, for letting us know, just your expertise and your extensive amount of education. I know that is something, obviously, that you're passionate about. And so we're going to kind of just dive right into it. Ryan, what do we have first for Dr. Brown?
Well, actually, since we went a little bit into the background, we really want to just to kind of make a transition into, we're thinking mental health initially. And I know we had a conversation prior to your, what I really want to kind of tap into first is your TED Talk. When you watch your TED Talk, the ticking time bomb, it can apply to so many different things in life, like so many. I did a live with a young lady about an hour ago, and we were talking about how so many people try to address internal issues with external solutions, when really it's all about what you're putting into yourself that is going to heal you from the inside instead of trying to find these outside solutions. Well, that's with health, but that's also with finances. And we typically have a tendency of waiting and waiting and waiting. We see it's hurting. And I made a little analogy to the domino. It's teetering. It's going to settle out. It's going to keep on teetering. It's going to settle out. Nope. And it falls over. What am I going to do now? So speak to us a little bit about your TED Talk, what kind of led to that TED Talk, and how that can be applied to other things that you've seen in the Black community.
Okay. Thank you for that. So my TED Talk was about the what I call the ticking time bomb, or the kind of the health bomb that I saw a lot of in the Black community. And kind of like you said, I mean, this is where you would see it. I would get to see individuals that, for me, of course, I'm seeing people with kidney disease, and one of the individuals I talked about in that particular talk was an individual that was he was like 25, 27 years old, and he had a stroke. And come to find out, his stroke was strictly from hypertension. And it was something, I'd seen it before, read about it, but it was the first time I'd actually seen an individual that young that had a stroke strictly from, something that as a medical doctor, I'm like, well, just prescribe a few medications, take the medications, you should be fine. And so over the course of my career, what I saw there became a common theme. And that is especially for African Americans, coming in with what we call end stage damage. So whether it's a heart attack, stroke, coming in to need an amputation from a number of chronic diseases, that could we completely prevent it? No, but there's a difference between you being on dialysis at 40 versus you being on dialysis at 60. There's a huge difference in that. And a lot of times, a lot of these individuals were aware of issues in the past, but either, chose to ignore it. Maybe they had one bad experience. And what happened was that they allowed this condition to continue to go on in their lives until it caused something that made, for a lot of them became irreparable damages. And I know you mentioned, the connection between, health and finances. How many people do you know that they have bad credit? Why do they have bad credit? Because there was a bill that was due that they didn't want to pay. And instead of, and maybe they were in a bad financial situation at that time, but instead of, calling up the company saying, hey, look, I'm in a jam right now. Can we delay the payments or cut the payments down? What do? They ignore it. They ignore it. They hang up the phone. And what happens is you turn them around and now you got this horrible credit that you've now got to try to rebuild. So like you said, a health bomb, whether it's the health bomb or the financial bomb, it still becomes the same. You get a lot of damage done to your life, physical life or your financial life that could have been diffused in the future. So it's like, when you're watching TV, somebody hears about a bomb, you bring in a bomb squad, you go find help to help you diffuse this bomb so it doesn't go off and cause a lot of damage. And so that was kind of the crux of this TED Talk, was kind of taking these experiences and bringing them to basically African Americans in a way that they could understand. Because a lot of times I feel like, especially us in the medical community, because we live in that world, it's hard to communicate what we mean, mm-hmm. and what regular folks understand. And even as and part of it may be folks not asking questions, but sometimes they don't know to ask questions. And then a lot of times we also get people kind of saying, well, why did the doctor say more? Well, at one point in time, I would have said that. When I worked in academic medicine, we had a lot more time, so we could sit down and talk with people. Also, we had, I had a resident, I had a fellow, so by the time I came to see this person, I'd heard the story several times, so I know what to get out of this person. Now, when I went into private practice, it became a different entity where I don't have the time. Like I said, I got an office manager telling me that I got, 10 minutes, to get, go in and see this patient and keep moving. And, that's when I realized is that, sometimes even the doc may not have time to ask you those questions or to ask those extra questions. I know recently, it was probably about a couple of months ago, I had he was an African-American man. He was, I think around 50 years old. And, I see him for the first time because of some issues with his kidneys. Okay, so we're taking care of that stuff. Kidneys aren't too bad. And somehow at the end of the talk, we just chatting it up a little bit. And he starts telling me about, some little something, man. I don't know, my chest don't feel right all the time, doc. Okay, well, when does this happen? Well, just whenever I'm working. But if I sit down, it goes away. Now, for me, I know this is a classic sign for what we call angina or, the early signs of a heart attack. And so I say, hey, let's send you to the heart doctor. Write this thing up. He says, okay, fine. See him a few weeks later. Hey, how's everything going? Fine. Did you go see the heart doctor? Nah, I ain't having a problem with that. And so I'm like, okay, so because we have this relationship, I asked a few other questions. And, he was like, well, the stuff went away, so I didn't think I needed it. Okay, well, do you have any family history of heart disease? Well, my brother had a heart attack. My dad had a heart attack. Right. Okay. So, but I don't have those same symptoms. I'm like, no, the reason I sent you there is because that symptom you described it could be an early heart attack. So, I say that to say, sometimes, it's that communication that needs to happen. And, sometimes is it one person's problem? Not, I don't know. But, if you don't have the time to ask those extra questions, some of those things can kind of slip by. So
absolutely. And Dr. Brown, just to kind of piggyback off of that, I know that this topic is something that's very personal to me. I had lost my brother at the age of 27 of a congested heart failure, who was a collegiate athlete. So it was still something that kind of, it still bothers you, because you think in your mind, how can that be possible? But what I realized about that personal experience, as well as just from what you're talking about, is that in the Black community, we're taught, and I speak a lot about resilience. And what I found, about the importance of it, people in our community, we've been taught for so long that when there's a problem or there's a challenge, right, we're going to do three things. We're going to let it go and say we don't care. Or we're going to pray about it, or we just stay busy, right? And all those three things, I'm not saying are bad things, but a lot of times we don't really get to pay attention to those things, those signs of our bodies and our mind, and allowing ourselves to be in a certain place. So that's what I do, is help people be comfortable with being in the place that they're in. And it's okay to say that I'm hurting, or I'm upset, or I'm mad, or whatever, because when we internalize a lot of issues that we have, even though we feel like we're strong, and even though we feel like as long as I'm still making money and I'm able to get up and cook the eggs for the kids and get to work on time and do this, and I got a little chest pain, but it's all right, I'm just going to keep on doing this, and I'm going to keep, that's how we're taught, right? Because we feel like, as long as we can handle it, it's okay.
Right.
And so, obviously, we know that that's not okay. And, in the community where it's kind of difficult for Black women and Black men to have this kind of conversation, because as a Black woman, if I go to a Black man and say, man, I'm having these issues, or I'm having this challenge, or man, I'm feeling down today, or man, I feel like I'm going through this, automatically it's like, she got too much going on. I don't want to deal with that, right? No, thank you. But then as a Black man, if he comes to a Black woman and he says, I'm just feeling down today, I'm really feeling sad, I'm feeling bad, it's like, he kind of weak, right? So everybody in our community is having this, we're putting up this front where we say, or faking it till we make it, to kind of cover up the issues that we're having instead of really confronting them. And so I'm saying that because we know that, stress and depression, all those things can also lead to kidney damage. And so, because of the cluttering and the filtering of the blood, and it causes all kind of, I'm sure, issues, which this is what you spent all your money on studying. I just feel like the community needs to know that, it can be a domino effect when you're ignoring these signs of, feeling stress. And I know that for me, I had to learn to say, no, I'm not doing it, or hey, I'm not feeling good, or I'm not feeling up to this and that, and I'm just okay with feeling that way, regardless of what other people may feel you feel like, or should feel like. So what do you feel like? Do people really know that there's a huge connection between, we talk about kidney, we get stressed, and so we have a little drink, or we have a smoke, or we have a this, or we have a that. All those type of things, it cures us, it makes us feel better for that moment, but obviously it does stuff to our kidney. Because of the stress and the aftermath of I guess, covering it up with substance or whatever. What do you feel about that? Do you feel like a lot of the kidney disease that we have here has anything to do with the stress? Do you feel like that's why we have these issues in the Black community?
I mean, I think, you said, that was quite a bit there, but I think you hit on a number of issues that affect us as a Black community, or, especially, we are taught to be, quote unquote resilient. We're also taught to put other people ahead of our own needs, even to the point of it being detrimental. And I think there are multiple factors that contribute to this. Like I said, number one, I think especially when you're talking about healthcare, I mean, there's the mentality that we've been given. There's the healthcare environment that we're exposed to, which has not always been friendly to us. And so, you got that aspect going on in there. And all these things kind of come together to give us, kind of bad coping skills. Kind of like you said, the alcohol or the smoking, those things that are just kind of bad for us in general. Those negative interactions that we have with the healthcare environment. Racism, let's go and put a word on it. So, that experience, because, I think we come from an environment where, we're already conditioned. So I know a lot of people say, well, it's because of the Tuskegee experiment. I don't know that, a person that delays care is thinking about Tuskegee experiment. It's a lot of the other things that, you've already had a bad experience with the law enforcement. You've had, the bank didn't take your loan. Somebody's trying to cut your power off. So it's like all these aggressions that are going on in the rest of your life. And the last thing you want to do is take a day off work to try to go, to a doctor's appointment where you think you might get that same experience again. And so because of all these different factors, I think we wind up delaying care that could potentially, hold off some of these things like dialysis or kidney disease, stuff of that nature. And then on top of that, like I said, when we have coping mechanisms, which, like you said, they contribute to we're kind of taught, bad coping mechanisms. Like I said, we get stressful. What do we say? Hey, let's go grab a drink. Nah, sometimes you need a counselor. You got enough stuff. You need a counselor.
Absolutely.
And for a lot of individuals, I think that's what it is. I mean, like I said, there is this thing called trauma-based care, where because so many of us are raised in environments and we're exposed to these negative elements. Whether it's just within our culture itself, because like I said, sometimes we're not kind to each other. Then you got the majority of community, and it's not always kind to us. So you got all these layers of trauma that are playing a role in how you, number one, value yourself. Because like I said, if you don't value yourself, then of course you're not going to go seek the help. And then on top of that, how you perceive asking for help and then going to actually completing and going for that help. So I think there are like so many layers that go into why, we don't engage in a healthy manner in the medical community. And that's before we even get to like, the racism in healthcare and all this other stuff. I mean, like I said, before we even get there. And then on top of that, so now this person finally makes it out, goes there. Like I said, all they need is one negative interaction. Like, I think when we did the TED Talk, I said, if the receptionist, looks at you wrong, then, you're ready to walk out and not come back. So I think all these things kind of play a role in why we have, some of these negative outcomes. And then in addition to that, like I said, stress in and of itself, if you're in a high stress environment all the time, the hormones that you produce whenever you're stressed, are not good hormones. These are not hormones that kind of help you. And so, they're going to lead to you having high blood pressure. It's going to, more likely make you a diabetic or contribute to those sort of things. So I think you hit a number of points, and I think that it's multiple factors. I think that one of the things we have to do is value ourselves. You as a human being are worthy of getting help for your issues. Like I said, and then the other part is recognition that some of these behaviors that we're doing are not healthy. And then, like I said, being humble enough to go and seek help And I think that stuff is, I think all those are really good points.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you for hitting on those because it kind of takes us slightly into my area of expertise, which is the mental health space.
Okay.
And living here in South Mississippi, I was able to a couple years ago partner with a couple students in the nutrition department at the University of Southern Miss. And we developed a social business, and it was strategically designed to tackle obesity and obesity-related chronic diseases. Now, here in the South, like I think I mentioned earlier, I used to live in Miami. I lived in Miami for about 3 years. Everyone is super health conscious down there. Everyone want to look good. You can be able to walk around with the shirt off, males and females. And that's the norm down there. Whereas, coming back to Mississippi, I'm like, goodness gracious, it's just normal and accepted to be obese. So a lot of these things that become that ticking time bomb in certain communities, it becomes a norm to accept that you're a little pudgy, to accept that you got a little extra meat on your bones.
They call it thick now.
They go thick. Big boned.
We're big boned to thick.
Exactly. You're a little more than thick, but it becomes accepted. So we continue to push the side effects to the side because they're just part of it. It's just part of it. Yeah. And then looking into athletics, specifically football, we have these heavy set men. It's okay to be overweight because you're on the line. You got to protect your quarterback or whatever. So just kind of thinking about the whole mental health, accepting the norm of being obese, accepting the norm of, okay, yeah, we're just a little bit stressed to go drink it off. What are some of the coping techniques that you could actually suggest when it comes to getting away from just accepting what is and learning to actually cope with it in a constructive way to potentially position you to change your thought patterns around it?
Okay. Oh, that's a heavy one right there. But I do understand. Like I said, I'm originally from the South as well, so North Carolina. So, like I said, down there, you're absolutely right. If you come down too skinny, people gonna look at you like, "Are you okay? Maybe you need to go. Do you need to go to the doctor?" Like, no. This is called normal weight. Interestingly enough, I actually had a friend of mine. So she was, here whenever I was training, and petite young lady who was single. So she leaves from here. She goes to Charlotte, and I remember talking to her after she went down there, and she was saying how she was struggling in the dating scene because she was like, yeah, the guys don't look at me. She's like, yeah, I got friends that are much bigger, and they get all the attention, and everybody just kind of walks by. And I was like, well, you're kind of down south. That's kind of how they do down there. they like I said, that yeah, you
the other way.
Right. You walk into grandma's house, she's gonna give you 2 plates. So I think that, some of the eating habits and things that we have developed, especially down south, I think we have to, because I've struggled with this conversation and issue with my family. And what I've come to realize is that we have to remember that we are, one, maybe 2 generations from an agrarian culture. And so, because I remember, I grew up and, like I said, my grandparents had a farm that we had to work on. And, one of the things I've had to tell some of my aunts, and they don't listen to me, but like I said, is that, when you're in an agrarian culture, you're working all the time. So yeah, you can go get biscuits and gravy, a couple slabs of bacon, some eggs and some grits. Guess what? Because you finna go out in the field and you finna work until you might not take a break until like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So yeah, so during that time you're burning all the stuff off. And so these heavy meals that we call quote unquote the traditional soul food is, it was designed under very different circumstances. And now where do we do? Most of us working in sedentary jobs, and different activities where we don't burn nowhere near that number of calories. However, because of our culture, we feel like we're supposed to continue to eat like we used to eat. And then we also looking for some of the things that we look for. So back then, like I said, if you were, you're a little heavier set, like I said, you can handle the mule a little bit better. You have all these things that are in our culture that I just feel like we haven't quite caught up with. Especially when you start talking about places down south and things of nature. So I think that's one aspect. Now, one aspect I've seen in more of the inner city piece, because of course they may be a little bit further from that, and that becomes more of a food insecurity and access to healthier foods. So for them, it's a little bit different than what it is from down south, because from what I've seen here, it's a lot of just kind of bad eating. It's processed foods, and like I said, foods with that are very calorie dense. So like I said, you eat a couple of, like I said, a couple of Twinkies or whatever, not only is it like bad food in general, but it's also very calorie dense. So that leads to a different type of obesity there. So I think for those individuals that are trying to break out from this, I think number one, you kind of hit the nail on the head. And that is in turn, you kind of have to go out and see how other folks live sometimes. If you ever get that opportunity, like I said, if you're somewhere down south and you go to a Miami, Chicago, someplace where people don't live that way, you get this, that's the first, that can be the first step in breaking that paradigm. So, oh my God, this is different here. The other thing is just kind of, realizing, kind of like I said, that, we're not doing what we used to do. And that, like I said, we need to make some changes, and that change is okay. You don't have to completely leave your culture. So, you don't have to stop eating collard greens. But, you can, instead of putting so much pork in it, maybe put a little bit of, turkey in it.
Do turkey necks. Yeah.
Turkey necks in it. Yeah, exactly. A little less there. And then the other thing is portion control. Like I said, you don't have to eat 2 plates. I mean, that's fine. Okay, you want fried chicken? That's fine. How about just the drumstick? You don't have to get, like I said, half the chicken. So it's like let's do portion control, because really, for a lot of folks, that is huge in and of itself, is portion control. Because remember, especially yet again, we go back down south. Part of that culture is you honor the cook by eating more. And so they always want to feed you more. So this is something honestly, even now I still struggle with my dad, because my dad loves to cook these big meals. And if you don't eat a second plate, they feel insulted. But, over time, he's kind of gotten adjusted to the fact that, oh, well, I know you don't eat as much, and that's fine. I love you, but that's fine. But come taste this. Come taste it.
And you taste it.
Exactly.
And then you better taste it. Don't forget where you came from, just because you got a little education.
Right, exactly.
You better eat that food on that plate. So I totally get that. And Dr. Brown, what do you think about, I really focus on African American male athletes. Okay. And, right now with the competition going up and everybody's getting faster, jumping higher, because again, usually for our young Black males, the overall goal is always to make it to the pros, make it to NBA, NFL, NBL, or track, or whatever it is. And I'm a huge advocate for student athletes. I mean, I feel like if you have the gift to do it, I had a gift. So I had a free college education using my gift. So I'm always an advocate for that. But because we're getting so desperate with being the best and trying to be chosen and making that 1%, a lot of times now we're starting to get into taking creatine and taking all these supplements and all those kind of things. Can you just give us a brief, maybe insight on just the amount of damage that goes into taking these supplements, blood doping? They do a lot of that in track, and because it's a survival, right? If you don't run fast, you don't get picked up. You don't, you're not going to get anywhere if you're not one of the fastest and jumping the highest and stuff like that. So it is coming a time to where people are starting to get super desperate and trying to be the best so that they can make it for their family, or just living, or whatever they're trying to do. Can you just kind of touch on some of the effects of these supplements that we take to enhance our performance, and what it does not only to our kidneys, but what about our mental health? What does it do to our overall health?
Okay, so that's an excellent set of questions there. So I think that we'll kind of go back to what what you said initially, and that is the importance of athletics in our youth. And kind of like you said, I mean, for athletics for our youth can mean a lot of different things. I mean, like I said, there's the just general physical development. Like I said, you're a young person, you need to develop yourself anyway. Like I said, our bodies were meant to move. So like I said, I think that those aspects are good. Like I said, for some folks, like I said, it becomes, a way to get some discipline that you may not, if you don't have a proper home structure. Sometimes you can get that little discipline there. You can get peer groups. I mean, you can get positive peer groups that can kind of help you navigate through your youth. So whether it's middle school, high school, and things of those nature. So you can get that, and you also have goals. Because like I said, now you want to be, if you want to aim for becoming, this track star, you have to push yourself. So I think that there's a lot of good that comes from athletics. But I do think you you did mention something there, and that is that, I think the problem becomes when, athletics or becoming that pro athlete is the only way you see yourself getting out of situations, or the only thing that you have, because then you go from this sport being, what is really kind of healthy, competing stuff of nature. You go from that to something that then becomes a little more obsessive, and it sets you up for like I said, if you don't make it, now what? Now you go through what is essentially a grieving process, and that grieving process can be very very abnormal or harmful depending upon what it is. So I think we kind of mentioned before, like I said, the lineman that's been bulking up and getting big, and like I said, okay, so now you don't go pro. Now what do? Now you're depressed, you're drinking, you're still eating like you were before. Now next thing you know, you're overweight, and all this sequelae that come on with that. In terms of all the supplements, like I said, some supplements are okay, but like I said, a lot of these supplements, we have to remember the medications that are prescribed by your doctor are governed by the FDA. They're monitored, and so they have to go through a number of tests before they come to market, and then they are continuously monitored, so that if we start seeing some harms from it, they can pull that stuff off the market. Supplements, hey, anything goes. So, you don't necessarily know what you're getting. You don't know, like I said, maybe the last batch was okay. Suppose something's going on with this batch. And then when you start talking about creatine and things of that nature, the things that can happen to your body, I've had patients that come in because their kidney functions are abnormal from taking some of these supplements.
Yeah.
Take them off of them, and those kidneys and stuff get better. So the other thing about, anytime you put anything artificial in your body, like I said, 10 people might have been perfectly fine. For you, it may not work as well. So I always think that, for people, I think it's good for them to compete. I think it's good for them to push themselves. But when you get to the point that you just feel like you have to take, substances, in order to get to that next level, you're reaching a point that this may be going from a nice, healthy competition to something that is not quite as healthy. It's not quite as healthy. And then you just have to deal, and then like I said, you run the risk of putting yourself in a situation that you may not want to be in, especially as a young person.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
yeah. It is a very sensitive topic because it's hard to have that conversation with somebody who's passionate about, what they do. And we talk about that all the time, is that it's easy when you've already gone that road to come back and say it. But when you're going through it, even now with the kids and COVID and they're depending on, they depend on getting these scholarships to go to school because their parents don't have the money, and now sports may not be available. So we just know that, it is a very sensitive topic, to get into, especially with people that are very passionate about what they do. And so I can't imagine, I am an educator, so I've been in education for over 15 years. And so I don't do much coaching now, or anymore. But when I did, I can't imagine having that conversation, telling these young girls and boys that, hey, you might want to start thinking about something else, because sports may not be, that percentage of you making it, that it was already 1%. And so now with COVID, it may be, 0.5%. So now your chances are even slimmer. So Dr. Brown, definitely thank you for, letting us touch on that, because it is something that we're very, passionate about. Did you want to say something about that?
Actually, yeah, now that you mentioned the COVID aspect, I think you're right. I mean, I think that COVID in general, COVID in general has just, completely changed our world. And when it comes to athletics, I can only imagine, like you said, I can only imagine the impact this is having. I think there could be some good things because, like I said, now you got a whole generation of youth that sees that, oh my God, they can shut down the NBA. Oh my God, they can shut down the NFL. Oh, I'm gonna tell you right now, I didn't believe it when I saw them. I was like, wait, you can do that? I didn't believe that. So yeah. So I mean, I'm hoping that can spark some other interests, some other ideas about what you can do and your vulnerability. Because like you said, I mean, there were so many that were training for this and only thing they can think about is going pro. And when, like I said, only 1% is actually going to go there. And like I said, nobody ever looks at what happens to the rest of them. And I'm thinking, like I said, maybe this can kind of put a shock to that system so that they can start, like I said, no, you could still do your training, but just make sure you got a plan B, plan C in case this stuff don't work out. And then also, in terms of, the current climate and folks not being able to play or practice now, I just want to put out there, for the parents, this is stressful for your child. And I know maybe even you had the idea of putting that child pro or something of nature, but please do not press on these children right now. No, they do not have control of the situation. There's nothing you can do about this situation. I can only imagine, like I said, you're a pro football player, pro basketball player, and you're already stressed. You can't go to school. Practice is canceled, and then you got a parent out here that's also piling on that pressure during this time. I mean, this is so disruptive to life as we know it that we need to make sure parents are not putting that extra pressure on these children that are undergoing. I mean, what is, like I said before, the only word for this is grief. You have a loss of life as you know it. And although you're sitting there, like I said, I know we were touching base about the mental health. Like I said, this is a part of mental health that can easily bleed over into mental illness. And these kids already have a lot of stresses on them. Like I said, you put too much pressure, they become depressed. They don't know how to act out. Like I said, even before this stuff, I mean, there was a higher rate of suicide amongst youth that was really, as far as I know, unprecedented. That I can only imagine this is not helping. So, that's just one aspect I would say, like I said, when it comes to the youth and athletics, is that parents, please do not put any extra pressure on these kids. If that school shuts down, just say, hey, Johnny, Raheem, everything's okay. We're going to make things work. You can work out in the backyard, help them with doing different things, but do not put extra pressure on these kids because they're going through something that I just can't even imagine. So,
Man, that is so real. That's so real. And, that's one of the things that I focus on is helping the youth, specifically young Black males, understand that there are alternative routes. Now, in this Black Economic Initiative that I'm starting, I'm really highlighting Black males in certain communities, some that started as an athlete, but they went on to become an entrepreneur. They learned to use their skill set, their passion, their desires in various different ways. So I really help these young people focus on not only putting all your eggs in that one basket, but having something that you're building alongside. Because as you mentioned, sometimes things are outside of your control.
There you go.
An entrepreneur, certain things can be outside of your control, but you have more control over it. So one thing that I look at, you started off and, as practicing under certain different entities, and then you became your own independent practice. Like, you found a way to find joy in practicing your career in various different settings, in various different facets. So what could you say to that young male, that young female that they've been pushing their entire life to go into sport and they feel like they have no identity outside of that? Like, being able to go from being someone that's working in some other person's entity to having your own practice. What type of advice could you give of just having or feeling or experiencing coming to that, just being happy with who you are and being able to deliver in however way you want.
Okay. So I think that, you're right. I mean, that's kind of a tough thing. I think that, for me, as I look back on how I even became a doctor and things of nature, a lot of that was just me running from home, honestly. And I imagine that for some of the athletes, that's probably the same thing. They're trying to get away from whatever their environment is. And I can understand that. Like I said, we grew up on a farm. So, if you were working during the summers, the whole 9 yards. And so when I got opportunity to kind of go to college and stuff of that nature, I was going. I was not coming back. I was not coming back because the only thing I knew back home were fields and factories, and so I didn't want no part of any of that stuff. And so, but now I will tell you, like one of the things I think a couple of things kind of helped me to not only continue to move forward, but also to kind of open my horizons. So one was reading. I did have quite a love of reading. Granted, part of it was probably because we didn't have cable. But we had nothing to do. But I mean, the reading part is huge, and I actually push that with my kids, and that is reading, and not always reading the same thing. Like so sometimes read stuff that some people go I guess you don't have to go to the library now, but even if it's online, like say try to check out things that that are not necessarily things that you would normally read. And just kind of using that to kind of expand your mind. So that's one part of it. And then just being open to opportunities. I have a daughter. She's in college, and like I said, she had a mindset on one thing, and I'm like, well, that's nice, but go grab a class, and like I said, a business class. Go grab a class in an IT class, and just try that out. That curiosity about things that you don't know about, and being willing to explore those are huge. And especially for African American youth, because you have to remember we're, our culture, especially over the last couple of decades, have really made us more and more insular, and in doing so has cut us off from a lot of opportunities, even seeing opportunities. And so for the youth, yes, I know that sometimes you want to listen to some music that's a little bit different than what you normally listen to. You want to talk to a kid. If you got a school that's got, maybe some immigrants or something, you go over and talk to them, see what their life is like. If their opportunity, if you go to church and their opportunities say that they, they do volunteer programs and they travel stuff, go. Get out, go. Especially, I know sometimes parents don't want to let you go, but if they will and they support you, get out and go.
Absolutely.
Take advantage of all of that stuff, because those things kind of help you, even if it's not right then. Like I said, there's a lot of things I did. I exposed myself to back when I was in, middle school and high school. I didn't really think much of it at that point in time, but I think it prepares you for taking advantage of opportunities later on.
Yeah.
And so that is probably one of the biggest things. So reading, exposure to things outside of what you normally, get exposed to, and taking advantage of any safe opportunity that, and like I said, you may have to do volunteer work. Maybe you got to break some leaves, or, like I know, like for our church, they have a program. I think one time I saw them, I think they had the youth like picking some collard greens or something. I can't even remember what it was. But for a youth especially that hasn't had that experience, it's a great one-time experience.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I imagine one or two people might actually enjoy it, but if nothing else, you always have that in your what we call repertoire or your experience that kind of helps you whenever you go different places. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're just so excited about the amount of knowledge and experience you have, and of course how vulnerable your vulnerability and your willingness to open up and let people know, is you have these degrees, but you also have the background and the experience that's going to change people's lives, because that's the stories that we know people need to hear. So where do people find you? And, if they have any questions, now you're probably going to get a million questions about stuff. You were like, that freaking show. If they want to follow you on social media, or if you have any kind of events or anything that you feel would be relevant, where do people go to find you?
Okay. So probably the easiest thing to do is to go to thedocbrown.com, thedocbrown.com. And that is probably, because I think everything is attached to that one.
Okay.
I have a Twitter account, which I'd have to look up.
Don't know the password. Just what do you have the password to?
Exactly. So let's see. So let's look this thing up right quick. So thedocbrown.com is my my website. So that's probably the easiest thing to get to. And then, like I said, in terms of Twitter, like I said, you can follow me at Chris Brown MD MPH, and that's Chris Brown ChrisBrown MD MPH, and that's my Twitter account, and that should also get you to the website as well.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Dr. Brown, for just sharing and your willingness to come on the show and enlighten us with all your knowledge. And we just definitely have enjoyed having you here.
This was a great opportunity. I really enjoyed it, and best of luck with the podcast.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. And definitely, we're going to continue to push you out there on social media. Keep doing what you're doing, man. We need more examples like yourself out there in the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We're going to put you in the backstage, so just hang out there for a minute while we close up.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Take care.
Thank you. Well, we are closing up the Black podcast, and so I'm just excited. I mean, every week it's just getting just richer and richer, and so I'm just feeling an abundance here of knowledge. And so, Brian, we got some special guests next week coming up as well. So, Mr. Tyree Washington. He's a 400-meter world champion, and so he will be on the show next Thursday talking about his experiences and everything that he's overcome, and it's amazing. These stories are just from all different walks. So, I don't know if the audience is ready for all these guests that we got here. I mean, Dr. Brown, and then we got another one coming after that. It's like just back to back. It's a lot.
I mean, I have yet to eclipse the doctor rank yet. I got Dr. 𝐄𝐩𝐢𝐬𝐬 here, here, got Dr. Brown. Now, next week, we got Tyree Washington. I ran the 400 in high school, but I didn't make it to the collegiate ranks like you. So I feel like I'm in a disadvantage. But,
I mean, I ain't make it to the Olympics, but I'm just saying. Hey, we got a superstar coming on next week. But again, guys, I mean, please reach out to thedocbrown.com. He has so much knowledge, and he is very humble. I mean, he's very humble. So if you have questions that you feel like you need, answers to, I can guarantee that you'll get responses back, and he will give you as much knowledge as he possibly can. So again, this is the Black Podcast every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you be here and that you share.
Yes, indeed. See you guys next week. Thank you for watching.